Hi, and welcome to another episode of This Week in Plymouth. My name is Derek Brindisi. I am your host and your town manager. So this episode, we have two individuals joining us talking about planning. So let's start with introductions first. Steve, I'm going to turn it over to you. So Steve Bolotin, who is the new chair of the planning board as of last week. Prior to that, you were serving as vice chair.
Correct.
I think this is the first time you've been on this show. So if you don't mind, just give a few comments about your background and where have you been, what you've been doing here in town.
Sure. So I'm a 30-plus year attorney.
Mm-hmm.
I went into semi-retirement after being a partner at a large firm in Boston, where I specialized in doing design, professional, and municipal liability work. I retired with the idea that I wanted to give back to the community, so I started by serving as the associate member, the alternate on the planning board, and then ran for a full seat 2 years ago, and have been working on various town boards and committees related to planning since.
And speaking of that, you're also the vice chair of the charter committee as well, too.
I am. So I'm the chair of the master plan committee, the vice chair of the charter committee, and the secretary for the senior task force.
So heavily involved in all of that we do here in town government.
If it relates to the future of Plymouth, I've tried to get involved.
Great. Thank you, Steve. And so, Lauren, I'll turn over to you. So Lauren Lind is, I think, the most recent addition to the town as it relates to one of the select board's priorities of last year. And one of those priorities was succession planning. So, and Steve, I think, having been here in town, we do know that there were some departments in years past that really didn't really think about the future and, who were going to take these leadership roles in years to come. And so I think that the town looked at that as a weakness. And so we've tried to correct those weaknesses. And this past year's budget, one of the positions the select board advocated for and was approved at town meeting was the newly created deputy director of planning, which Lauren thankfully accepted that role. When did you start, Lauren?
I started a little over a month ago in early May.
Okay. Seemed like you've been here a lot longer than that. So Lauren, can you, describe to the folks at home your background? I know you have a lot of planning experience.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you for having me. It's really a pleasure to be working with a great team in Plymouth. I bring 9 years of municipal experience with me in my career. I have a master's degree from Boston University in city, community, and regional planning, and I am certified with the American Institute of Certified Planners. I started my career actually in nonprofit sector. I was working in transportation demand management in the Route 128 corridor. I really was working with clients and municipalities on how they would work to mitigate impacts of traffic. Mm-hmm. And from there, I then became the assistant town planner in the town of Milton, Massachusetts. Beyond that, I went to be the planning director in the town of Cohasset. I spent several years there. Mm-hmm. And most recently, I spent about a little over a year in the private sector working as a consultant for municipalities across the state. My focus in consulting was working with communities on comprehensive master planning. So I've done a lot of master planning in different communities, small and large. I've worked with cities. And in addition to the long-range master planning, I also worked with MBTA communities compliance.
And I think was that your first introduction to Plymouth when you helped the town develop their MBTA proposal?
Yes, it was. Yeah. So my first formal meeting to the planning board and the select board was at a presentation about the MBTA communities law compliance and how the town of Plymouth would meet the state requirements.
And it sounds like that just passed at the April town meeting. Was that right? April town meeting, April MBTA bylaw passed. So that has been moved to the AG's office. So we're waiting for final approval on that end. So just a quick question. So you've been here about a month now.
Yes.
Thoughts? Feelings?
I love it. I love the town of Plymouth. There's so much to do and see. There's a lot going on with the different villages downtown. And as you know, my background in master planning, I'm really excited to be working with the community and their new master plan. So this is a great time.
I can tell you Lee Hartman, who's our longtime director of planning and community development, is really excited to have you on board. He has said that to me on multiple occasions. So thank you so much, Lauren, for being here. So I just want to get right to the subject at hand. We have, for the first time in 20-ish years, a master planning process or a master planning update that's taken place. And there's been a lot of conversations. So I came back to the town of Plymouth in the spring of 2022, and the update to the master plan was already well underway. And so over the past 2 years, there's been, again, continued conversations about developing and updating the master plan. So, but before we get into the details of that, Lauren, can you describe to the folks, like, what is a master plan? What does that mean?
Absolutely. So a master plan, or otherwise sometimes known as a comprehensive plan, it's a long-range planning process. It is really the opportunity for the community and the residents and the business owners, any member of the community of Plymouth, to have an opportunity to take a look at what is here today. It's an existing conditions analysis, and then it's a community visioning exercise. So we get to take a look at what does the community want to see, where have you been, and what are the goals that you want to achieve in the next 10 to 15 years, so that as we look towards the future, planning for infrastructure, land use planning, open space and recreation, all sorts of topics, it's an opportunity for the community to have a voice in what they'd like to see. And then we can create an implementation plan with action strategies to get us to what that community vision is.
So to your last point, so once the master plan is created, then we take the next step towards an implementation plan? Is that what happens?
Correct. So the master plan itself will have an implementation strategy embedded within it that will give you those concrete steps, who is responsible, what the timeframes and goals are to achieve those visions that the community sets.
Gotcha. And Steve, I know that my last community I worked in, we were talking a lot about building out the town of Upton's master plan. And there's a lot of different topics within the master plan that need to be covered, right? So what are those various topics that we should be aware of?
Well, the master plan really covers almost every aspect of living and working in Plymouth. Now, having a master plan is a state requirement. The state directs each town's planning board to create and update their master plans. So they have certain topics that are required to be there. Some of the major ones, for example, are land use, housing, open space, community development, and historic development, things like that. We're looking, however, to go beyond that. This time, Plymouth is saying, okay, there are minimum requirements for a master plan, but we really want to make this our own. We're looking at additional topics beyond what the state's requiring that are unique and truly important to Plymouth. Things like our aquifer protection, environmental sustainability, things like that. So we're making this a truly Plymouth-centric master plan. This is not an off-the-shelf. This is not a cookie cutter. And we made that very, very clear to the consultants who are getting involved in assisting us.
So it sounds, from what you're saying, Steve, is that this is very much geared towards the town of Plymouth. It's like you said, it's not cookie cutter. It's not something you would see in any other community. This is very specific to the town of Plymouth.
Absolutely. Our goal was to say, this is not doing a master plan just so we can check the box to say we have a master plan.
Right.
This is to make sure that we have a plan that really serves as guidance to town officials as to what the residents want to see and how we can go about trying to achieve that.
So the three items that you mentioned, amongst other things, was land use, housing, and economic development. I think those are three questions that I was asked during my interview for town manager, especially the economic development. Oftentimes folks think that there's going to be a silver bullet to economic development, right? So are you saying that through this process, we will have very clear goals around affordable housing, for example, or land use and economic development? It's going to be that clear as to the direction that this town wants to head in?
That's exactly what it is. One of the things that when we did our gap analysis, before we agreed that we were going forward with a new master plan, rather than just an update of our old master plan, but really create a new one, was we looked at our existing master plan and said, where is it falling short? Where have we gone beyond it? Where have we passed it? And in doing that process, someone very wisely said, for every square foot of land in Plymouth, there are 5 competing interests. So we have to look and try and balance those competing interests. And that's what we want to get from the community. We want the community to understand what those competing interests are and ask the community, how do you, as a town, want the town officials to go about balancing those competing interests?
Sure. Yeah. Good luck. So Lauren, we already have a master plan, correct?
We do, yes.
So why are we creating another master plan?
So the existing master plan is 20 years old. It's done its time. There's a lot of that has changed in the community now. Things that maybe weren't an issue or that people hadn't thought of, different community preferences. It's an opportunity now to take a look at what the community wants today and how can we, help plan the direction of Plymouth for the next decade or more. So it's time now to take a look and do some forward thinking and look at what has changed since the last plan, what did the last plan perhaps not account for, and how can we address those in this plan?
It's interesting, not to get off topic, but I know that my first 3 or 4 months here, I was working with the select board on trying to develop very specific goals, right? So that we could be measurable, we could measure ourselves at the end of the year and determine whether or not we made progress. And, I had talked about my time at the Army War College, where this was in 2015, and after spending a week there with colonels and generals and then just in these symposiums, they weren't talking about where they wanted to be in 2020. Again, this is in 2015. They were talking about where the military needs to be in 2050. And so I felt very shallow at the time. So I'm thinking, we don't think like the military. We're not thinking 20, 30 years out like the military is. And so when in everything that I've tried to convey to folks, it's like, if we just can't wake up in 20 years from now and say, okay, we're going to live with that environment. We have to start planning for that today. So the master plan to me is kind of like that same long-term strategic planning processes that the military has, that they're thinking who their adversary is going to be in 2050. So that's what I think of when I think about the master plan. But when we think about, and I think, Steve, you started to touch on it around engaging community, but who within the town, and maybe we have a consultant, I'm not sure, who's going to help us lead the community through this process?
Well, we'll start by saying that the community will lead this process because this is the community's master plan. This is not the planning board telling the community what's going to happen or the select board or any other board or committee. This is the community telling us what it is they want to see. They're going to be given as much information as we can reasonably give them and say, this is where we're at right now. These are the trends going forward. So this is what's happening in our community. How do we want to deal with this? Mm-hmm. So the community is going to be the leader. In order to gather that information, a master plan committee was created. The planning board, which is again responsible under the state law to manage the master plan, created a committee. And we took representatives from the planning board, the select board, the school committee, the COPC, and community residents, and the open space committee, and put all of these people together, and we're together working to guide the process. And that's what we're guiding, the process. We're not deciding what's in the master plan. The community decides what's in the master plan. We are very ably supported by our planning and community development department, by Lee and by Lauren, and their experience and expertise in helping us put together these proposals. And to put it all together, to tie it together, the town meeting authorized us to hire a consultant. And we went through a interview process and we chose a consultant, Stantec and several of their sub-consultants. So it's a consulting group, people who have expertise in different areas of economic development and planning and resilience and all of the things that we said were really important to us, and housing and transportation, all of it. Mm-hmm. And their job is to work with us to get as much information as they can from the public, parse it out, and come up with recommendations based on their experience on what other towns, other communities do, what trends are, to give us some guidance, not as to what the community wants, but how to accomplish that. And in the end, it will be their job to draft that up for us to review and comment on and prepare in a form that hopefully my goal, my dream as it were, is that every board, every committee, every town body sits there with a copy of the master plan next to them as they attend meetings, as they hear proposals, so that when someone comes forward and says, I have an idea, they're flipping through that going, how does this fit in with our community's vision of where Plymouth wants to go?
Yeah, that last piece, Steve, that is so important because I can tell you in my role, I honestly feel that we are reacting to everyone's wild dreams, whatever they are. Hey, I have a great idea for this trail. I have a great idea we should do over here. And we end up chasing, we combust a lot of energy chasing a lot of these ideas because we don't ever want to say no. So we want to explore these ideas because sometimes there's value. And that gets back to going back 2 years ago, myself working with the select board and trying to create these goals so that we could point to these goals when someone came to us with an idea. We could say, well, does your idea align with one of the select board's goals and priorities? So I think everything you just described will be extremely helpful, not only for the visioning of the town, but it'll be helpful for town staff, to come back and say, we love your idea. We'll put this in the parking lot for a little while because we have to stay focused on the master plan, and because that's really our guiding light. So that's great to hear. And Lauren, this is going to take time. I can't imagine that this is going to be done in a few months, right? So I kind of, this is a two-part question. One, I'm interested to learn of how long this is going to take, but I'm also interested in understanding how this plan will fit into all the other plans that are taking place, like, for example, the climate action plan, right? So if you could help us out.
Absolutely. So in terms of the timeline will, over the next 18 months, we'll be working with the consultants in the community to get to a draft plan. And that is the document that is the master plan. It is the existing conditions analysis, summary of the vision and goals that we'd like to see, and that implementation plan. That is what the draft plan is. After those 18 months, at that point, we will then have several months of review with formal public hearing process, presentation to the select and planning board. So opportunity for comment for the public to input and to refine that plan until it's in its draft form. So overall, we're looking at really like a 2-year process here. And what we've done to prepare for this is we've provided our consultant team with all of the other historical resources that we've had, the recent plans, whether it's been the 2004 master plan, all of the open space plan, our housing production plan was recently done within the last year or so, and as well as the new parallel planning processes that are happening, like the climate action plan that was just recently adopted. We've given them all sorts of data points, and they will take all of this into consideration so that these plans really are meant to be woven together, that they're not sitting in their individual silos, so that you're addressing what's already been done and the research that you've had, that many communities and members of the community have had a lot of time and input on already, and taking that and building from that in this larger umbrella of what the comprehensive plan is looking at. So it's looking to dovetail and not duplicate efforts.
And so, Steve, because you're the elected official in the room, how will the master plan be incorporated into, say, like the select board's short-term and long-term goals? Because I think you said it best. That your hope is that every board and committee member has the master plan sitting on their desk when they're having discussions and debate certain issues and topics. And again, the select board, they're already going through the annual goal-setting process. Would you hope that they just adopt the master plan and that the goals that they create are subsets of the master plan?
Well, I would say every goal of any board or committee will be hopefully a subset of something in the master plan.
Sure.
But the point of the master plan is not to tell boards and committees how to accomplish what is being set out for them. So if, for example, if the goal is to say we want to preserve X number of acres of open space each year, we're not going to tell everybody, this is what you have to go do. We're going to say, this is the community's goal.
Sure.
And we're going to leave it to the various boards and committees that are responsible for open space to work on plans and proposals to try and accomplish that, and to report where they're at. So at the end of the year, so each year, the select board and the planning board can take a look at that and compare where we are to our stated goals. Another one is affordable housing.
Right.
So again, If our goal is to create X number of affordable housing units per year, we're going to be able to say, what can we do to accomplish that? What programs what things can we apply for? What can we do to help try and achieve that? And at the end of the year, we can look and say, how did we do? Did we get close? Did we equal it? Did we exceed it? Were we way off? Which will then give us a guidance for the following year and the years to come, saying, all right, we tried this, it didn't work. We didn't get where we wanted to go. Let's look at new programs and new ideas, something different, because what we tried didn't work.
Right.
But this way we have a way to keep monitoring our progress and change ourselves and adjust ourselves. And if we're doing really well in one area and poorly in another area, we know we need to shift our priorities.
And so you said that ultimately that these priorities are going to bubble out through the community. These are the community's priorities. I was at a meeting at Sawyer's Reach about 2 weeks ago. I was invited to come to one of their monthly meetings, just kind of talk about, town government, things that are happening in town. And one of the items I brought up was the master plan. And I have to tell you, there were probably about 50 folks in the room. They were really excited to hear about this master planning process, to the point where they said, hey, is there any way that the consultants can come to one of our meetings in the future and talk to us about master planning so we can learn how we can get involved? So there's a lot of excitement out there. So how can folks that are listening to this conversation this afternoon participate in the process?
Well, we'll start with the big kickoff that's coming up on Thursday, June 20th. So that's 6 to 8 p.m. at Plymouth South Middle School. And that's going to be the consultant starting with their basic information, explaining to the public, here's a little bit about what master planning is, here's what the town has done so far, here's what we've looked at and found, and now we want to start hearing from you. And that'll be the first of a series of listening sessions that are going to be held throughout the town.
Mm-hmm.
So the consultants will be at various places. They're going to be holding listening sessions. They're also going to be at various festivals. They'll be at the Waterfront Festival. They'll be at the Farmers Market. They'll hopefully be at other places where people can just say, you know what, I was thinking of this. Here's an idea. Then on the top of that, we have an online tool that we're really working on. That's going to be a combination of various surveys and exercises and things that people can do, an interactive map where someone can literally click on where they are and say, here's an area that I live in, and here's some comments I have about some problems we have, or on an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Here's my thoughts on our sustainability. Here's my thoughts on climate resilience. Here's my thoughts on green building. Here's my thoughts on economic development. So everybody's voice matters. This is one of those, I've gotten in trouble for saying it, but I'll say it no matter what. I believe the master plan is the single most important document in town, bar none. Mm-hmm. Our charter is very, very important. It's how we govern ourselves, but the master plan is what the residents say we should look like. It is their voice, not anyone else's. It's their voice. And that's why it's so important for them to use that voice in this process. So come to all of the events and come to master plan committee meetings. And we're looking to hold those not just in town hall, but also around the community. And those are open to the public. There's a Zoom option available, and public comment is not only welcome, but encouraged. We want to hear from the community.
How often do you expect the master planning committee to meet? So is it like a monthly meeting or a quarterly?
It will probably meet at different intervals depending on what's going on. I imagine summer will probably be a little bit quieter just because people take vacations, people don't attend meetings. People are busy in the summer, and I get that. We'll be there, we'll be having our meetings, and we're going to be working with the consultants and with our staff to find ways to make sure that we hear from people. And then come fall, we'll probably pick it up even more often. The goal is to have every third meeting somewhere out in the community. And if the community has ideas as to how they want to get their voice heard, we want to hear from them.
Right.
This is not us, again, this is not us telling the community, this is how you will inform us of what you want. This is the community saying, if the people at Sawyer's Reach want somebody to come and talk to them about the master, someone will come and talk to them about the master plan. And we're planning on going. We're going to cover all of the villages. We're probably going to cover other population centers, and we're going to talk both about issues and about regions.
Right.
The goal being to try and give everyone an opportunity to express their opinion, but also to inform them as to how their ideas for their area fit in with the rest of the town. That's the one thing that we want to stress. This is truly a town-wide plan. We have village master plans as part of the planning process. We ask the village steering committees to come up with ideas and guidance and things as to what they want to see in their villages. And that's great. And those are very important, and we do pay a lot of attention to those when development comes to those areas. But at the same time, we want the villages to understand where they fit in the grand scheme of things. Some of our villages are more rural. Some of them are more urban. One of our villages, Cedarville, is about to undergo probably a large amount of change when we really start talking about the Cape Bridges, right? And all of the staging and development that's going to go on as a result of that. So we need to be thinking about these things and planning and helping those communities figure out where do we all fit in.
So sounds like there's lots of opportunities to participate online, in person, various meetings. So that's great. And I know you want this to be a community engaged process. We only have about a minute left, Lauren, and I kind of wanted to leave it on the final comments with you because Steve touched upon it when he started talking about the participatory process. We have a big event coming up on Thursday, June 20th. Can you talk about that?
Yes. So we really hope to see as many people as possible at the meeting on June 20th. As Steve mentioned, it's our kickoff meeting. It's scheduled at the Plymouth South Middle School from 6 to 8 p.m. There will be light refreshments, and we are offering childcare services. There are translation services available upon request in case anybody would like to request a second, another language besides English. And really, we want to hear from everyone. To underscore this process, we need resident participation. It's the most critical component to this planning process. So we are inviting everyone to come out to listen to an introductory presentation and then to give us their thoughts and participate in these engagement activities to hear from them about what their goals are. So I just finally want to note that for anyone who's not able to attend, we've already gone over, there will be many other opportunities to comment, and we will also have an online survey form that will ask the same questions that are at the activities at the meeting. So rest assured, if someone can't attend on June 20th, that there will be a lot of other opportunity to comment.
So if folks are looking for more information today, can they go to the town's website? Where can they get more information?
Yes, we have a master plan committee page that has the information, and we'll link to a master plan website that we, as discussed earlier, has a variety of interactive, mapping exercises, questions, and the historical resources that we've provided. So there's a lot of resources to find online.
Great. So we're running out of time. I want to thank Steve, you and Lauren for both attending. Good luck on the master planning process. I guess maybe we'll check back in 2 years from now and see how things went, right? So for those folks at home, as Lauren mentioned, you can always go to our website at www.plymouth-ma.gov. You can look up master plan, learn more information about what's going on, when to check in. So if you're interested, please join us. Please be that resident who participates and doesn't complain about things after the fact. So for a future episode, that's the end of This Week in Plymouth. Until next time, thank you very much.